Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and a new card video using some brand new Honeybee Stamps products. They just had their fall release. I haven't even had time to process. We are this close to Stamptember and I've got just piles. So many fun things coming. But anyway, I made this card for this week's Color Throwdown Challenge, which was fun because everything is very like fall themed, which I love. I do love. I love fall colors and fall leaves and pumpkin spice, all the things. However, the Color Throwdown Challenge for this week was like pink, magenta, green, and white. And I was like, I have ideas. So I went with the pink, really went that way. And like always, for those that aren't aware, the Color Throwdown Challenge is just something I'm a part of. We do it for fun. I will have a link to my blog post. And in the blog post, there's a link to the challenge. You can go check it out. Anyone can play along. It's legit, just for fun and inspiration. And for me, it always gets me thinking, gives me like kind of a starting point, or a lot of times it gives me a color combo that I was like, I would never think to put these colors together, and I love it. So I will have a link to that. This is also part of an Instagram hop to share inspiration with the new Honeybee release. So I will have a link to my Instagram directly below the video. I'll bump it up. I always have the links to my socials and everything at the bottom of the description box. You just got to expand it. If you're ever wondering like the products I use, the links to things, etc., it's always directly below the video. So I'll have a link to there so you can check that out, because I'll have links to all the other fabulous makers and inspiration in my Instagram post for this card. So you can go check that out if you are interested. And yeah, I will also link at the end of this video to my Lovely Layers playlist, because I've done many videos with the Honeybee Lovely Layers sets. There are now many in all sorts of forms, and I absolutely love them. I sound like a broken record with this, but it is so true. Their layering die sets are, the Lovely Layer die sets are the easiest. It's legit just largest to smallest. Pretty much. Like, it's so simple and I love it. So keep watching and I'll show you guys how I made this card. So I combined the two Lovely Layers floral type sets, because there was actually many Lovely Layer sets in this new release. But I went with the Lovely Layers Dianthus, which is this big main piece you can see, and then there's a wafer die that cuts out some layers for the leaves, and then there's 3 dies that cut the pieces for the little blooms. So that's going to be my main focus. And then I also die cut a couple of sets of leaves and a little floral sprig from the Lovely Layers Autumn Bouquet die set. And I've got what will be my greenery for all these pieces, and I stuck them to my just Waffle Flower grip mat, and I die cut everything from just some thinner white cardstock, and then ink blending and simple ink blending, especially like on the base of this Dianthus, because those like kind of blobs there on it, that's where the florals are going to go, so you don't have to worry about it. Same with this other little sprig, those all the little blobs, there's a layer that will go on top of it, so I don't have to worry about doing a nice blend. And then the green sprigs, simple, and the leaves, simple. So I started with Simon's Positively Saturated ink in FAIRWAY, and just literally just slap the ink on. I've talked about this many times. With their Positively Saturated inks, they smooth out as they dry, and yeah, I push it. I like to see how much of a mess I can make, or how, just slap the ink on and see what happens. And it continues to entertain me how nicely it smooths out, because especially like I've been doing this for 20 years, but I remember, with inks like a long time before we had the options we have now. Because now we have options, many options, so many different brands, and I love it. But before all of that, I remember how much I used to struggle with ink blending. Like, oh, the struggle. Didn't have the tools we have now, didn't have the inks we have now, all the things. Like, so much struggling. Now it's all taken care of and I love it. So anyway, I did FAIRWAY inks. That was like a medium shade of green. And then I went in with Field, which is much darker. And I was just using a little blending brush. And then I pulled out one of my Waffle Flower shader brushes because those give me a lot more control and I can just kind of pull the color wherever I want it. So added all that. So it gives it that extra, depth and dimension. And then I was like, you got to add splatter. You guys know the drill. So I just stuck and I was quite happy to see that my big Waffle Flower grit mat just fits perfectly in my splat box. So I was like, yes, need to do this more often. And for my splatter, I'm going to use some Mica stain because you can't go wrong with Mica stain. So I pulled out Specimen, which is one of the newer ones. This green is really dark, but the shimmer in it is something else. I used it in one of my Halloween. In fact, I used this in my Lovely Layers Coneflower Halloween card because I made the greenery look like kind of diseased. People got a kick out of that, but really, that's what I was going for. Anyway, I mixed Specimen with a bit of Wicked Elixir. Just shook them up really good, put it on my little palette, mixed it with my fan brush, and then just splattered it onto all those pieces. And because it was just a really light splatter, it dries very, very quickly. And then I layered those little leaf pieces. There are guides with all the Lovely Layer sets. It comes with a guide now. And if you have any older sets that didn't, you can go online and download them and print them off. Again, 99% of the time, you don't even really need the guides. It helps the very first time. But even then, the pieces just line up. Like it looks confusing at first when you've got a bunch of pieces, but the minute you go to actually put them onto where they're supposed to go, it just makes sense because the way they have them shaped and all of that, like each piece has its own unique little shape and they just layer on top of each other. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Seriously. I've said this before. I generally tend to avoid things that are like really difficult or super, super time consuming with card making because it's like, man, I only have so many brain cells I can stretch out in a day. So if things are thought out for me, I very much appreciate all these brands that, they put in the legwork and the brain power for me. And I'm just like, thank you. I very much appreciate it. So anywho, for these little, I just call it a sprig. I don't know what it's supposed to be. I was thinking kind of baby's breath, really. But I'm sure there's like an actual, it's got an actual floral name. I like florals. I don't know most of the time what they're called. I'm just like, it's a thing, whatever. Anyway, for the white, I wanted to keep it white. And I added just a tiny bit of shading with flannel, Pawsitively saturated ink. Just, give it a little bit more depth. And then adhere the pieces. And again, each piece made perfect sense. You pick it up and it's like, oh, this obviously goes here. This goes here. Done. So I did all that. And now I'm back to that Dianthus and the florals. And there's only 3 dies for the florals. And each die cuts all the pieces for each floral. It just works. And again, there's a little guide and it just has all the pieces lined up like how I'm showing. Really. So that's why I did it. I just followed the little guide and laid them out on my mat so I could add my ink. And I used bubblegum, sweets, and taffy inks. Just started with my little blending brush with the lightest color. Put it on all the pieces. And then I'll go in with another one of the little Waffle Flower shader brushes. And I'll go in with my medium ink, which is sweets. And kind of a light hand. Like I just kind of drag it in. You can't really see it. It's hard for me to see when I'm doing my editing, but you can't really see it on camera. But in real life, with all these types of sets, you can see where the detail is. And that's always a good guide of what's actually going to show up because, one piece goes on top of another piece, etc. So I was just kind of adding the darker shades where the little detail etch lines were because that's the parts you're actually going to see when everything's adhered. So I did that, and then my darkest shade, which was taffy, went in, added a bit of that here and there. And then once I've got my ink blending done, I'm going to add some splatter to these too, because you can't leave that out. So I pulled out Cocktail Party Mica stain spray. Again, you have to shake it up really, really well, because the mica stain sprays, all that gorgeous mica just settles to the bottom. So you shake it up really, really well. And then I put a bit of that on my palette. And then again, use my fan brush and added the splatter. And on these, I kept the splatter pretty fine, but I made sure to use all of it. And these look always, because they are a like dye liquid mixture with mica stain, they always look darker in the bottle or like on my palette here. Like it looked like red, but when it dries, it's just the pretty shimmer and love. So once those were done with the splatter, it's time to adhere. And again, it's just, everything just fits. I would say it's like a puzzle, but it's even easier than a puzzle. Like I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it. You just go largest to smallest. That's it. And each piece, there's little grooves here and there, or just little identifiers that just make sense. The minute you go to like actually adhere, it's like, oh, it fits right here. Oh, this piece fits right here. It just works. So I just adhered them on top of the base so that I'll have all of these little florals on here. And since this one has a few little pieces for like the edges of the petals, that's where it comes in handy too, to have my little reverse tweezers. Also to get them up off the grip mat, because yeah, small pieces, reverse tweezers. I've raved about my reverse tweezers for all the things. These are definitely a must-have craft tool, and you always need to have more than one pair, because it's always guaranteed that one's going to grow a pair of legs and walk off when you need it. So I have many pairs. Gotta have backups for the backups. Anyway, adhered all of the little pieces, and I just happened to work my way from like the largest bloom. I did the medium bloom, and then I'll do that one on the top. And yeah, as it comes together and you actually, see it all like in person, it's just like, oh, yep, these are so fun. I love it. And again, I used to avoid the whole die cut thing. I talked about this in a video not too long ago. I used to avoid doing like all type die cut type cards, because it just wasn't my thing. Because again, I struggled with ink blending, all the things, and now they're like one of my favorite types of cards to do. I do a lot of cards with just wafer dies, because there's so many fun ones now, and I love it. Anyway, got everything adhered, and then I had to just go close up and show you guys. It's like, oh, look at it, look at the detail and the splatter and all the fun things. I just love it. And I will show at the end, I'll turn my flashlight on so you guys can actually see the shimmer of that mica stain splatter. And then for my sentiments, I am using the new Bountiful banner clear stamp set. It's got just a bunch of sentiments and whatnot in it, along with like a huge like floral like main focus, but I just wanted the sentiments. So I grabbed a couple of sentiments, and I just have a scrap of some doll paint cardstock, and I put it in my Misty, and I used my anti-static powder tool. And then I inked up the sentiments with some just white pigment ink. Stamped them a couple times to get, good crisp image. And then coated this with detail white embossing powder. Once I've got that in place, I can melt these with my heat tool. And then once I've got these melted, there is a coordinating die set for that Bountiful banner set. And it die cuts all of the sentiments, like just the sentiments, which you can see here right up to them. And then there's the banner. So I decided that's why I went with the darker cardstock, and I was like, ooh, I can die cut the sentiments from that and then layer them on top of this banner. So I took the coordinating sentiment wafer dies and taped those into place with some washi tape so they don't shift when I run it through my die cut machine. And then the banner I die cut from some cotton candy cardstock. And then I decided to add a little bit of ink blending to the like large banner as well. So I used that Sweets ink, so that medium pink shade, and my little blender brush, and just blended around the perimeter of this banner. It just gives it that little extra something. So after I've got all of that blended onto both of these, the banner that's going to go on the front of the card, I'm going to pop the actual sentiment onto the banner with some thin foam tape. Just, again, gives it a little bit of dimension. And then the one that's going to go on the inside of the card, I just adhered with my craft tacky glue so that it stays a little flat on the inside of the card. So I used just my little Waffle Flower thin foam strips to adhere the banner that'll go on the outside of the card. And I edited out the video. I had foam tape to both of them. People ask about like mistakes and different things. The chaos that was going on when I was making this card. I was so distracted, and yeah, it was like just habit, but easy fix. Just carefully peeled off the foam tape, and then adhered the thinking of you sentiment, because that's going to go on the inside of the card. And then the other new product I used is the Honeybee Fancy Fall Layering Frames dies. Oh, you guys. Chef's kiss. Honeybee's done several sets like this over the last year. I forget when the first ones they released like this. I can't even, really. They die cut these frames, but there's all of this detail that gets impressed into the cardstock, and I find it mind-boggling. I don't know. We've got our wafer dies that do like little stitching detail and little lines here and there and whatever. And those are great. I love them. These frames just, I love it. Like, I really love them. They're so fun, and you don't have to do anything. You just die cut it, and it just presses all this gorgeous detail into it. So I used the slightly smaller than A2 frame, and that went into the inside of my card. And my card base is a top folding note card. It's made of that same dull pink cardstock. So I put that on the inside and the banner sentiment. And then on the outside, I had die cut the A2 panel from that Fancy Fall Layering Frames from the cotton candy cardstock. Layered the white piece on top of it. And again, I'll show closer up like at the end of the video so you can just see that detail. And got those adhered. Arranged my floral cluster, which I've talked about this, floral arrangements is not my forte, but I'm working on it. This one came together. I was happy. It's something I struggle with, but got these, adhered into place, and then popped my little sentiment up with a little bit more foam tape. And then I had to add a little bit of bling, of course. So I used some Trinity Stamps milk glass embellishments. So sprinkled those just throughout this whole little arrangement. No rules, no specific guide or anything. I was like, this looks good here. I'll stick one here. I'll stick one here. That's it. So put little dabs of craft tacky glue and then adhered all those into place. Once those are adhered, this card is complete. So then I can show you guys the shimmer and the sparkle and just all the detail. I love it. Love it. So we've got the shimmery sparkle mica stain splatter on the greenery and on the little pink blooms. And then, there's all that impressed detail on those layers that just, look at it. Look at it. Isn't that gorgeous? Seriously, I love it. So anywho, like I mentioned in the intro, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have a link to the Color Throwdown Challenge. I'll link to my Instagram so you guys can hop on over there to check out the hop and all the good things. And I'll have the supplies, all that stuff will be linked below. Thank you all so very much for watching, thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.